Hey, it's Sam. I'm making this video here on July 20th. I'm in Canada, Toronto, Canada, visiting my guru Amma, final stop of her US tour. Wanted to make a quick video, talk about a few things that are happening recently with the astrology. Just happened this week. In fact, just happened today here on Monday, as Mercury has now moved into Cancer. So Mercury passed Mars last week in the sky. Its last pass of Mars for the next year or so. And I spoke at that time about the capacity to sort of let some old wounds heal, maybe some arguments or whatever that had started even around the end of April, or some difficulties with Mars and Mercury going back and forth. So it's very interesting how since that time, since last week, I use examples of people like Donald Trump, who became very active in the media. Since that time, he became very, prominent. We saw that he really sort of hung himself over the weekend with those ill-advised comments about John McCain's, record as a Vietnam vet. Pretty stupid. I think that's going to be the nail in his coffin. I haven't looked at his chart. It would be interesting to see because, again, Jupiter just changed signs. So there's a lot of things in flux right now. A lot of energy is shifting. Jupiter just changed signs. The Sun just moved into Cancer. Again, we had that Mercury-Mars just passed. Venus is about to turn retrograde. So this time next week, Venus will be retrograde, again, which really shows a reversal of fortunes relative to what Venus rules in your chart. Now that's both as a house ruler and also with Venus as the karaka of relationships. Relationships are about to really do some reversals and do some, shifts and some changes right now because of Venus retrograde. Again, when the planet goes retrograde, it reverses the things that it rules as a karaka and as a house lord. So for instance, for a Gemini person, Venus rules the 5th and 12th house, so that also tends to go backwards. If you're Capricorn, Venus rules the 5th and the 10th houses, so those things also tend to go backwards, in addition to what the planet rules as a karaka. So these are all about to shift on July 26th. So, so again, it's easy to focus in astrology and focus on the moment it goes retrograde, but these energies build and then they culminate at certain points. Venus is really what's called, it's actually stationing in the sky right now, which means it's stopping. And right before the planet goes retrograde, it becomes very powerful. It sort of stops moving. And that's where Venus is right now. So Venus is kind of stopped in the sky right now in Leo. So you can feel a kind of where certain energy is really stuck now. That relationship or whatever Venus rules in your chart feels kind of like it's stuck and like it's in flux and like it's changing and about to move. And it is. We're here by the airport, so there's airplanes flying as well. And again, all of this is also happening as Jupiter just moved into Leo and Mercury now has just moved into Cancer. So that's why I say I have a feeling that Donald Trump has kind of played his hand. I think he's kind of peaked. And it'd be interesting to see where that relates to his Jupiter because, Jupiter has now gone into Leo. You can see big shifts happening on this sort of political sphere, or we can start seeing those things now, as I mentioned last week in the video, that some of the liberal gains and the progressive gains, especially that recently happened through courts, we can now start to see some of those things challenged with Jupiter and Leo, which definitely has more of a potential for a conservative sort of backlash. And, I kind of called that one right on time, literally the day after I made that update last week. Get some wind. President Obama of the U.S. visited Oklahoma, and he was greeted with this sort of slew of Confederate flags, which is, I even use that as an example, this sort of flag issue. For every winner, there's a loser, and so with Jupiter moving into Leo, we can see that shift in the rhetoric. Get some wind here. So, I talked about those things last week. We can expect those things to continue. And this week in particular, now we're going to have, as I said, Mercury just moved through Gemini and it's now in Cancer, which can show more of a sort of emotional relationship style, and also sort of, confusion about our words. I should say, an emotional communication style, which is not always so good, because when we speak and when we communicate, we actually want our words to be clear and not be garbled with a lot of emotion. And literally, like, how well do we speak and how well do we communicate when we're crying or when we're upset? And, Cancer is the sign of feeling, not just crying, but it's like when we're feeling love, there's really not a lot of words. When there's love, there's feeling. Like, how do you describe the love you have for your child? What words do you use? Well, you can put some words to it, but they don't really encapsulate what love is, right? So that's it's this kind of communication style for the next several weeks. Now, it's definitely good for things that don't, that aren't really spoken through language. Sorry, there's a lot of wind all of a sudden. Things that we don't necessarily speak through words. Intuition and more intuitive kinds of, ways of speaking and interacting will be supported. And of course, that also includes introspection, meditation, and absorbing and bringing what we have, the information that we've gathered, which is Mercury, bringing it into the heart. So literally, this is why the sign of Cancer comes after the sign of Gemini, because we need to take all the information we have and connect it with the heart. And again, the heart isn't necessarily emotions, it's our intuition, but we tend to experience it as emotion a lot of the time, because we experience our heart through the agency of emotion. It's hard for us to experience our heart in peace and clarity. So this is a great, potential for the next several weeks, is to let information sink into the heart where there's peace, and ponder and reflect upon what you've learned and the information that you've gathered. So, but also realize that you might not be as clear and precise and flexible in that, because Mercury in Cancer is much more intuitive, not as precise. And this week is starting on Tuesday. The moon is going to join Rahu, and then it's going to be hemmed between Rahu and Saturn, and then be debilitated and with Saturn. So again, we've been hitting this section of the zodiac every month, where the moon winds up being joined Rahu, hemmed between Rahu and Saturn, and then joined Saturn. So get ready for that on the 21st, and for about a week. So again, that could be some stressful times. So, be careful of this feeling, of this, these imagined fears, which is Moon Rahu, which will, this will mainly happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, and into Thursday. And then the moon hemmed between Rahu and Saturn, Thursday, Friday, into the weekend. And then through early next week, we'll feel Rahu joined Saturn and also debilitated in Scorpio. So during that time, of course, we're going to also have Venus go retrograde. So again, it's a time to be vigilant and stay on top of your, your fears more than anything. Because Rahu, when Moon joins Rahu, it activates our imagined fears. Now it's especially around Virgo themes, which is that we don't have all the information that we need, and that there's danger in hidden things that we don't understand. And we've seen some of that in the news also lately. One of the big stories that was a bit underreported, and it also is related to that Mars-Mercury interaction, is that pretty nasty computer hacking incident that happened, where the company that basically hacks for our governments and for different governments, quote, the good guys, they were actually hacked. And so, like the hackers getting hacked. It can be pretty dangerous, scary stuff. This happened, last week, or a couple weeks ago now, and so this is real Rahu and Virgo stuff. So we might see some of that fear and paranoia around some information hacking and things like that this week, and then even into next week. Those stories might reemerge, and also just in general, because Saturn is the planet of our tangible fears and worries, which means fear of like not having good health, not having enough money. So on a personal level, these transits could be pretty intense this week. So sort of update with things changing. We now have Sun and Mercury in Cancer, like I said, which is different from last week, making for a more emotional, intuitive style of relating. And of course, Jupiter is now in Leo. And this is also a great time to be studying astrology again. It's a great opportunity for that, because Leo is that fixed fire and Jupiter is what inspires you. So this next year is a great time to really make a commitment to those things that inspire you and study them formally. That's what Jupiter is about. And of course, I have a certification course that's happening. I also have a web class on Jupiter in Leo, if you haven't seen it yet. And of course, some of the biggest news that will be happening for the next several months is Venus is about to turn retrograde. By this time next week, Venus will be retrograde. So your relationships can take another interesting, surprising turn, perhaps. So anyway, with that, I'll say au revoir from Toronto as the airplane flies by.